Hi.
Hi. We love our fake intros,
I know.
'cause we've already been on chatting, but we have to give the performance intro for you all. And welcome to Life Stuff, episode 8 already.
Where Justin says we just talk about whatever the fuck we want, but not today.
No, but today we're talking about some specific fuckery, specific stuff.
Oh, God, Jesus Lord.
Yes, Jesus Lord. That leads us right to what we're going to talk about today. I have a special guest on today, one of my dear friends, Ernie, who I work with. And we're going to talk about religion, which it's a huge topic, but that's the reason I wanted to bring Ernie on because him and I have had some very in-depth and insightful and just honestly healing conversations about religion based on our experiences. So let's just bring Ernie in.
Hi. Hi,
Hi,
Ernie. Good to see you again.
Nice to
welcome
see
to the
you
Queer
too.
Network. Welcome to Life Stuff. Ernie and I work together at Industry Bar, and we become just the dearest of trouble bunnies. That's an inside joke because we're so silly that we're like bunnies who are in trouble. um, Yes. Do you want to just give a little lowdown of who you are and how you exist in the world? Maybe to anybody who doesn't have has never met you before.
Sure. Hi, I'm Ernie. Also go by the name Everything. I am a queer person who grew up in South Texas, border town McAllen, if anyone knows it. I grew up super religious, struggled with my queerness with that, but then found a love for music and music theater and went to college in Oklahoma City and then moved up to New York City right after I graduated college in '05. Have been continuing my I feel like most of my life, like my life calling is to like find the most authentic version of myself. And I really support others doing that. It's kind of was birthed out of my experience growing up in the church and all that, and kind of the um, rejection against your authentic self in my experience. And so I have really been spending a lot of time and my life really seeking out authenticity, wonder, newness, creativity, life expression, and just like leveling up to your highest self.
And
Okay.
she's also a Broadway star. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. She
Oh
was in
yeah,
some
that's true. I've
act
been
on
on Broadway.
Broadway. No big deal. Big deal. And she has the voice of like a angel. It's scary. Not scary in a bad
Oh,
way.
thanks,
Scary
Justin.
how
You can
beautiful
check
it
it
is.
out on my Instagram, Ernie
Yes.
P,
Ernie
ERNIEPE.
loves to talk about loves to sing, and he also loves to share his plant journey on Instagram. So if you're a plant person, Ernie has a jungle in his room. It's absolutely fantastic. It's so magical, and he loves to share about the trials and tribulations of being a plant daddy. You already alluded to it, and I already said it in our intro. We want to talk
Before
about
you,
religion. Oh,
before you, first of all, that was an amazing intro, Ernie. Um, Before we get into the actual topic, so I just want to ask you a question about what, the stuff you just said, being your authentic self. What does that like, as you were saying this thing, okay, so what is your, what do you consider your authentic self? Like, what is that for you?
Well, it's
That's a thing I think that a lot of people, I mean, I'm still trying to figure that out, and I'm twice the age of you guys. So I think that's a journey that a lot of people are on.
yeah, it's really an important one, honestly. I think it can be as small as just being recognizing which choices are actually yours and which are coming from your authentic self of what you want to do rather than being motivated out of how you'll be perceived, people pleasing, perfection, or other kind of like childhood things as you grew up trying to live your life for somebody else or so that you can get a result from somebody else. Checking in with yourself and saying, do I want to do that? Is this a yes or no for me, regardless of the outcome? You know, Also expressing myself with fashion and things like that. What do I want to wear today? Not what do I think is going to make me look attractive? What do I think is going to make everyone think that I am talented and wonderful? No, what is my authentic yes with pretty much any decision? That to me is like what I've been really exploring and continue to explore. It's very much a growth journey. But just like finding your authentic yes in everything that you do, creatively, at work, with your friends, expressing yourself sexually, with your sexuality, gender, anything, hair choices.
I will say that this is a perfect episode to talk about, I think, something like this, because in some sense, the antithesis of what you just described is a version of religion that is really harmful to one's authenticity and to one's like uniqueness, because religion has the ability, I'm not trying to poo-poo it completely, but like it has the ability to put people into these boxes. I mean, society does in general, but religion has been used by society to put people in these boxes, very rigid. These are your roles. This is what you're expected to do. This is what the Lord expects you to do. And that drives everyone's choices when they're making any sort of decision about life. The opposite of what it feels like to tap into what you were just describing, which is inside here. Now, what the interesting thing about religion to me is that it does provide a pathway for somebody to find that within themselves if they were to interpret it in a way that doesn't make them reliant on Jesus, God, the Bible, your parents, like people higher than you in the hierarchy of religion. So I don't think it's got it all wrong, but I'm really curious now that you've explained this is how you live now. But childhood, growing up in religion, I mean, some of the things that you've told me before was not this. And yet, as far as I can remember from what you've told me, the commitment to God, religion, like the expression of that through you, through your voice, mind-blowing, because there's an aspect of that that also is so truthful, because that really is you. And yet it's sort of, in my interpretation of it, it's like you were manipulated by this thing that made you believe you needed it in order to get there. So I don't even know where to start
Yeah,
because it's so big, but
yeah,
like,
no, yeah, I can go from there. But just to give you a little background on what I grew up in South Texas. So I grew up non-denominational and Pentecostal. My parents are now Southern Baptist, but that's basically people being slain in the spirit, people speaking in tongues. Before I was born, I was prophesied over, which has been really kind of hard to pull myself apart from, because it's partially true. Um, Before I was born, like literally in my mother's stomach, they like prophesied over me, like, "Oh, this child's going to be gifted in the arts and is going to be a worshiper of God, is going to be a singer." Or I don't know if they said singer, but they said like a
mhm.
worshiper of God in the like arts area. And so I came out and I am now a singer, which I don't know if that was like chicken before the hen. Maybe my parents like really nurtured that as a child. Anyway, so yeah, speaking in tongues, slaying the spirit. Um, yeah, people prophesying and things like that. So it's very intense, a lot of kind of like visual manifestations of the Holy Spirit and stuff I'm growing up. So what I think is really crazy, what was hard for me to kind of pull apart and separate myself from with religion, is this whole mentality that like that kind of your own body and your own like initial thoughts are the enemy. Like my instincts, my feelings or whatever are not true. The only thing that is true is what God has told me is true. Well, sorry, this is just a Christian perspective. I grew
Right.
up Christian, so we're not talking about all religions. It's just Christian, non-denominational, Pentecostal. Um, yeah, die to yourself, basically. Carry your own cross. Whatever's going on that feels authentic to yourself, it's either a test from the Lord or it's um, something you need to kind of figure out, right? So that was the hardest thing, is like was pulling apart how do I really feel, because I don't know, because I was trained to always just like respond with what God wants me to feel or like how God wants me to be. And it was just really tricky to find your authentic self with that because you have such a false self that you're putting forward to be like the best Christian, you know?
Mhm.
And
Or
that's why I have, sorry, go ahead.
what were some of the tipping points when you started to, like, when the dominoes started to fall? Like when you look back into your childhood, were there already signs then that you were like, meh, I don't know, or was there like a bigger tipping point later where you're like, I like a breaking point where you're like, I cannot do this anymore?
Yeah, honestly, I have my queerness to thank for that. I identify as queer. Um, yeah, I knew that there was something different about me, and I knew that I was attracted to men. And, I was hearing from the pulpit every day, like, oh, homosexuals go to hell, and this is awful, and this is like literally the lowest of the low, like worse than, like, it felt like as a kid, it was like worse than murder. It was worse than being a rapist or whatever. It was like literally on par with those things. And as a kid, I was just kind of like, I spent so much time praying for God to change me so many nights, and like going and but never telling anybody, but going to church and like trying to be saved or be changed. And I was never changed. Like God never kind of answered that prayer to change me. I always had those feelings. And I had this journal when I was a kid, and I would journal a lot. And a lot of the journal entries in there were so awful to myself. I was just like self-deprecating. I was like literally just the darkest of dark. And it just got to a point where it didn't feel healthy. I was like, okay, well, whatever I'm doing right now with religion is not bringing me joy. It's not making me expand. It's not making me happy. So I need to find I need to maybe try something else
Mhm.
because this is going to lead to me maybe killing myself. Like, let's be real. Like,
Mhm.
if I'm getting so dark and I just hate myself so much, I'm going to hate myself so much that I don't think I want to even, or I deserve to even be on this planet. So I am thankful for my queerness for kind of showing me that there was a different kind of way of life. So I started saying yes to my queerness, and I felt lighter and I felt better and I felt good. Of course, you were going to church all the time, and you were trying to unbrainwash yourself,
Mhm.
but uh, continuing to follow the expansion and the joy and the honestly just like breath of
Mhm.
freedom of not being in the church um, really helped me and led me forward. And it's kind of like brought me to this point. I've been like kind of forging my own path since then.
Ernie, I'm thinking about people who are watching or listening to this who may have gone through or are going through something similar that you went through. So, like, what can you say to people? I've actually a couple of questions, but what can you say to people? Um, like, how did you do that? Like, did you just, wake up one day and say, I'm not gonna do this anymore? Or did you have help? Or, what can you say to those people?
Yeah, I mean, I had really minimal help. I had a friend in the church who kind of I was able to at least talk to about it. They didn't really tell me sin, awful, you're going to hell. They just kind of listened. So if you can find somebody who you can have these conversations with, that's really helpful. What I always wished that I had as a kid that would I think would have saved me more was knowing that there were other people like me. I felt very alone. I felt like that was the only queer person that existed. And I felt like I was the mistake in this thing. I was clearly doing something wrong because no one else is feeling this way, right? Which we all know this isn't true. So luckily we have the internet now. Oh my God, that sounds old. We have like the internet now, and we have like RuPaul's Drag Race, and it's a lot more kind of in mainstream media. So you can see that there are other ways of life that can bring you joy. But yeah, I would try to find someone in your community that you do trust, that you feel supported, and that loves you unconditionally. And if you don't have that, try and reach out to and find some kind of books or something to read to educate yourself. Um, take yourself out of this Christian bubble. Oh my gosh, what could you do? Yeah, take yourself out of the Christian bubble and try and find a different hub, because it is very, it's its own little world being stuck in this like church life. I mean, I went to church like 4 to 5 times every single week. So it was either that or school. So yeah, try to find some kind of allies at school, um, in some kind of community center. Maybe, yeah, maybe there's an LGBTQ community center in your area. Go over there and tell them how you feel. Say, hey, I just want to hang out. Do you have any events? And surround yourself with other people who are queer or LGBTQIA plus, so that you won't feel so alone. I think that's really the first step.
When you were talking about, not being able to be your authentic self unless it came from God, right? Like how did you determine, like Justin and I have talked many times on the show, like we meditate and we both go, inside and look for answers. And I mean, I believe in the universe and I believe in a higher power and, listening to not listening to our ego and all of that. So when you were, how did you, I'm not sure quite what the question is, but how did you know that it was God talking to you? Or like, how did you determine that this is not me? I have to listen. Like, do you know what I mean, Justin?
Yeah, how did you differentiate between these two entities as you started to realize like this one is causing me pain, but it's connected to the thing that I'm supposed to think is giving me guidance, God, Jesus, like church, as opposed to when you were like, I'm gonna just try something else. How did you differentiate those voices, like that those feelings, or did it just feel very obvious to you, like this one feels good, this one doesn't?
That was really hard, honestly. So I had come out kind of close to high school, but then when I got to New York City, I still was kind of trying to decide if I'm a Christian or not. What is my relationship to Christ? What's my relationship to God? And I can't tell you the names of them now, but I read a lot of books. I've read a lot of self-help books from a Christian perspective and then not. Um, and yeah, I just like, I guess kind of kept asking myself internally, almost daily, like, well, what is my authentic? Do I believe this? Does this still hold water? Or is this a programming that my parents or my family or my community growing up taught me? Right. And it's really hard to pull those things apart sometimes. So I guess it's just continually asking yourself, wait, do I actually believe this? Or is this a belief that I just think is the right way or what I should believe? And if it's resonating with you still, then like go down that path. And maybe there is a path for you that does have a relationship with God and you, um, in a different way than it is for me. Mine has kind of pulled me away from the Christian, um, God of Christianity. Um, and it has kind of had me connected with, um, the universe in a different way. I'm a musician and an artist. So for me, I feel a connection to the universe through music, through being in what's called the flow. Like that to me feels like that there's something bigger than myself that, um, I don't know how to explain it. I don't have the words for it, but there is something that is bigger than me that is channeling through me or that I feel really connected with whenever I am like in the music or experiencing art or gazing at the stars or in nature.
Right. When you think back on the times when you were using that gift to glorify God, like as in that was the mission, those feelings then, did you get so lost in the flow then too, or was that all sort of still being used to like try to cover this other side of you, like mask it and give this amazing like godly performance for people? Like how do you sift through some of those memories, like because you still sing and you sing absolutely gorgeously, so have you reclaimed that for yourself because it's connected to something quite traumatic, or do you not think about that past in that way?
I'm actually still on this journey. It's funny you ask this question. I'm in therapy also, and I'm reading a couple books on shame right now. And a question that my therapist brought up to me this week was, um, like, what is your relationship to singing? Like, who are you singing for? Right. And a mantra I've been realizing is that I am not my voice. My voice is separate than me. I can sing, but my identity is not my voice. And in my journey, that was connected to my sense of worth and value within the church and within my family structure because people did celebrate it. So it has been really tricky navigating the connection to big higher power or God or whatever, however you describe it, through singing. And it has been tricky navigating that. And like, I know that I don't know. It's just whenever I sing, it feels like my most authentic self, and I get to choose who that's for.
Right.
Is that for me and my experience? Is that for to worship God, which I don't think we should be worshiping anything, but or is it to share a communal experience with the people around me? So I guess you have to decide for yourself how
Which
you are using what you have.
which I think speaks to what you've already alluded to and spoken about is just this journey that all humans, every type, are on in discovering what is your actual voice. Like not specifically to sing necessarily, but what is who how do you actually feel? This journey of like sifting through, because as you grow up you're always observing everything around you to assess what is the what is this, what is that, and your parents sometimes help you, sometimes they don't help you. It doesn't really matter what the journey was, it's everybody's doing the same thing, trying to figure out. And we don't all, not everybody gets there where they're still so manipulated or run or driven or pushed into these boxes and categories until they hit a breaking point at which they have to do some more soul searching. But we're all on this path of trying to figure out, okay, but what do I actually want? And then we get to choose how these gifts that we have, whatever they are, get to amplify that that voice or that opinion or that feeling, and it becomes the gift that we give back to the world. I mean, if we're getting technical, like singing is a vibration and vibration is actual healing. That's not debatable. That's fact. So,
To me, not that I need to sum up what you just said, but it's like what Ernie was talking about earlier about finding your authentic self or being your authentic self goes hand in hand with the voice. And,
mhm.
and when you talked about the voice, you weren't necessarily talking about the voice that the singing voice. You're talking about finding your voice. And to me, that is discovering your authentic self. It's the same thing, which I think basically is what you said.
Yeah,
I just said it in
but it's but
one
it's
minute
nice.
as opposed to five.
Yes. Classic.
This is what we do. Sorry, Ernie.
No, no, you're right. I just wanted to add, I think if you're like trying to, if you're not a singer or whatever, I think it's important just to kind of like try to reconnect with your body in some kind of way and close your eyes if you need to, and like just breathe. And like, if you're asking yourself a question about authenticity, just really get in touch with wherever you feel your maybe stress or wherever you feel. For me, it's like right in my gut whenever I'm like anxious or whatever, it's like right in kind of the core of my soul. Wherever that is for your body, just kind of get back in tune with that. And even if the answer scares you or is scary, just keep asking yourself the question and then see what bubbles up. And if
Mhm.
it is scary, maybe you should do it
Yeah.
safely, whatever it is.
Yes.
Well, I've said that. I mean, I don't know if you knew this, but I don't do it much anymore, but I have taught meditation, and what you just described is what I try and teach people is to go inside and ask the question and listen. And sometimes it is scary. And people, there's a lot of things we don't do because of fear. But those, like you said, those are the things you should do, you know. Um, we play it safe and we don't want to take those leaps of faith, you know. So I think that's really important what you said is to go inside and ask the question and listen, you know.
Yeah.
And I think because sometimes you'll get all kinds of voices, but you just know when it's the right one. You know, you feel it. You feel it in your body, just like you feel the stress and the tension when it doesn't feel good. You also feel it in your body when it does feel good, and you know that's the right thing to do.
And I
Right.
think
Mhm.
that takes time, even that, to practice. Like, I know there's many times that you don't quite know what the voice is or how it's making itself known to you, and it just takes time to figure out like what is what in yourself. But we are so inundated with so much information all the time, and also ways to mask how we're feeling all the time and distract ourselves from how we're really feeling all the time. And I'm not saying sometimes that's what you need to be distracted, but at some point you're going to have to be able to tune into yourself to figure out how you actually feel. And that part might be scary because it may not be how you want to feel, but you do have to
Mhm.
accept it as where you are in order to make whatever small change you want to make in order to feel better in some way.
So
Right?
Ernie, we're gonna give you and then Justin and I'll wrap it up, but we're gonna give you the last word or the second last word. Anything you would like to say, about what we've talked about. Anything more you'd like to say?
Yeah, I just would encourage everybody. I celebrate authenticity, and really, I think authenticity is literally life. I think life is a creative act, and life is art. And so, you living and making the choices that you have and trying to find your authentic self is giving us your unique expression in this universe. So, I support that. Try and find the things that make you feel expansive rather than feeling like you have to hide or reductive in your life. So, just go out there and expand, make choices that scare you as far as expressing yourself and speaking your mind. I encourage you to read books. I'm reading a book called Healing the Shame That Binds You. It's blowing my mind right now. Read books, take meditation, go on hikes, try to find a conscious community around you that supports you and loves you unconditionally. Even if you didn't grow up with that, find your tribe. Find those people who are like you, want to express and want to see you do your best that you can. Um, you're not alone. And yeah, shine your fucking light, bitch.
Shine your fucking light, bitch. I'm putting that on a t-shirt.
Well, that was awesome.
That was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, darling, for joining us and for
Yeah, my pleasure. This was fun.
shining your fucking light is what you just did. Um, and thank you everybody for watching at home. I hope you gleaned something from this little chat about religion and Christianity, and I hope it shows people that, even when you have those experiences as a child, and lots of them are filled with different kinds of trauma, that like you can come out onto the other side and find something that you actually didn't even realize was even possible in this lifetime. We are literal examples of that, all three of us. And it's
Yeah.
still a journey. So
I mean, I think this episode was just way more than religion, and it was just, I mean, some just amazing lessons and guidance for people. And the subject to me was authenticity, being your authentic self, and that came from, you know, we obviously learn from our childhood, good or bad, and we develop from our childhood, either good or bad. And obviously this was not the greatest thing for you, but look at what you've become because of it. And I think that's the gold. So thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna get all
Thank you for
emotional
saying that.
now. So
and you
Thank
can
you.
come back anytime.
yeah,
You
soon.
have anything you ever want to talk about. I mean, we'll just invite you back. But if you are prompted by something you want to discuss, that's what life stuff is for. We don't have this sort of community for queer people even online, for talking about things beyond RuPaul and sex. So that's what it is for us. So come on
I
anytime.
love it. Keep on doing the work.
The work.
All right.
All
Bye,
right. Love
everyone.
you.
Thank
Bye,
y'all.
Ernie. Thank
See
you.
you later. Bye.
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 Everybody, you're welcome. Ernie is a light that I wish everybody would get to experience. And now more people will.
And a friendship. I mean, he's a very good friend of yours, and
Absolutely.
just as Sam is a very good friend of mine. I mean, it was an amazing episode with her. If you haven't seen it, please watch.
Yeah.
But again, I had no idea what to expect. I've only met Ernie once, and that was at the bar that you guys work at. So I had no idea, only from what, Justin, what you have been telling me. Um, but he's pretty special. And I love everything he said, and I think it's going to be very helpful to a lot of you out there. So,
Yeah.
all right, my friend.
All
Uh,
right.
yeah,
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
we'll see you next time on Life Stuff.
Life stuff.